Alright, so 9/11. Fear mongering. If they can make everybody afraid, and making everybody have to trust the government, it's just one step in their plan. World domination. To make everyone trust them. A lot of people still think 9/11 was enacted to start the Iraq War. That's not really part of it, because Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, they were involved. I believe it was like the Saudi Arabian, I don't know, like council, like a high, like president, like the Iraq president. I'm not sure. I'm getting my countries mixed up, but just bear with me. This is why I never make videos on this, because little details come and go. He was in Washington, D.C. the day of 9/11. And Osama bin Laden's family was given refuge. And one of the pilots came forward later and said, I'm a student, I'm alive. The pilots. I'm alive, I'm not dead, I'm here, I've never been a terrorist. I don't understand why they picked me, why this happened. So, you know. And on the same day, there were other drills for buildings being hit by airplanes. Or drills for other buildings being hit by airplanes. People at the FSA were told, we're doing a bunch of drills today, airplanes hitting buildings, so, just beware of that. Be advised that there will be fake airplanes hitting buildings. Boston, Chicago, LA, Detroit, it happened everywhere. That's why there was so much confusion. That's why they couldn't intervene, because they were warned ahead of time. Another thing is, on the day of 9/11, there were more absences from work than ever before. Most of them being high up CEOs just happened to go on emergency family vacations like the day before, going out of the country, which is really fucked up. And they sacrificed all these American lives, because it's one thing to make a threat and say, oh, there's a threat, and scare the American people into believing you. But if the terrorists really kill 3,000 people and just demolish 2 huge buildings, that's a reason to be afraid. That's a reason to turn and say, who can save us? What are we going to do? As a people, we're scared. Who can save us? Your government steps in and saves the day. But now there's going to have to be a lot of security measures. We're going to have to look in your bags. We're going to have to see what you have all the time. Look in your shoes. No liquids on airplanes. Honestly, if you read the 9/11 Commission report, there's a really telling amount of inconsistencies. I'm brushing my teeth because I'm a good person. I had these thoughts while I was brushing my teeth. I'm not going to stop brushing my teeth. And you know what? It's caused a hell of a lot of anxiety for the American people. If you watch interviews after 9/11, terror, terrorists, they repeat that word so much, and one of the best techniques of brainwashing literally is repetition. There's no one after us. I mean, there are people that would love to engage in war with America, but I mean, explain to me why out of nowhere on 911 day they would come and attack us and even think about flying a plane into a skyscraper. There's major reinforcements on skyscrapers. How do you think, I mean, they've made them so safe, and like people just ignore the jet fuel can't melt steel beams. They just ignore that fact because I understand you're comfortable believing what happened. It's a big thing of pride to denounce 9/11. But pretty much everyone in my generation knows that it's fake, to the point that it's a joke. To the point that it's literally a joke. Jet fuel burning temperature. Jet fuel is it has an auto ignition temperature of 410 degrees Fahrenheit. Steel melting point. Steel melts at a temperature, it's a 4-digit. There's different types of steel alloys. Yeah, the melting point of stainless steel is 2,550 to 2,790 degrees. Let's see. Melting points of a low steel alloy, which is 2,610 Fahrenheit. Lead has a melting point of 621 degrees. Aluminum melts at 1,218 degrees. So, it's not even close. It's not even close. It's hundreds, thousands of degrees off. So that's a major, I mean, that in and of itself says a lot. And I searched really hard. I tried really hard to find videos of other skyscrapers being hit by airplanes, which I know has happened, which I know is something that has happened before. The World Trade Center was hit by an airplane, I believe in the 50s or the 40s. Not the World Trade Center, I meant the Empire State Building was hit by a plane. And here's the thing about skyscrapers and planes. When a plane hits a skyscraper, skyscrapers are reinforced. I'm doing research in the moment. Number of steel beams, World Trade Center. Facts and figures. Let's see. So there were 110 stories in each tower. 1,360 something, both of them, feet in height. Let's see. 50,000 people worked there. 200,000 tons of steel used in the construction of the World Trade Center. 425,000 cubic yards of concrete used. Let's see. Foundations, zip code, miles of heating duct, cups of coffee. Fun fact, 30,000 cups of coffee served each day. 17 babies born at the World Trade Center. I want construction. I want to find the information on the steel beams. That's what I want. Alright, let's find it. These multiple different grades of steel were used in the construction. 12, in fact. Now I'm using science.howstuffworks.com. I guess I will make a little bibliography. So these grades begin at a very common type of steel known as A36, which has a strength of 36 kilopounds per square inch. That's a lot. That's 36 kilo pounds per square inch. And they got progressively stronger all the way up to steels that had yield strengths of 100 kilopounds per square inch. This source is FEMA. So, A36 steel, which is a mix of carbon and iron, like all steels, can handle 36,000 pounds per square inch of pressure before it begins to deform. So in the lower levels, the thickness of the external walls was around 4 inches. At higher floors, it could be as thin as 1/4 of an inch. The construction of the floors themselves, a mix of A36 steel, so that strong one, A36, and ASTM A242 steel was used. So ASTM A242 is what is known as a high-strength, low-alloy steel, which means it was extra strong, allowing less of it to be used, which makes for lighter building. So overall, 200,000 tons of steel were used to build what were, at the time of their construction, the largest buildings on Earth. Source, Ross. Someone named Ross. It's here. I'm putting the link in the description. So now it says, let's find out what happened to all that steel. So one of the most consistently used facts by 9/11 conspiracy theorists is that the grade of steel used in the World Trade Center simply couldn't melt at the temperatures fires created when jetliners slammed into the structures. And they're right. Steel's melting point is 2,750 degrees Fahrenheit. Yet jet fuel only burns between 800 and 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So what happened on that September morning that caused the towers to collapse? It says the steel bent. Even though the girders that comprised the towers wouldn't turn to molten steel in the jet fuel fire, they did weaken in the heat. In fact, it says they could have lost half their strength. Also note the other items in the building were on fire. So, according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or the NIST, the NIST, even these fires, combined with the impact of the planes, would not have been enough to bring the buildings down. Their official report concluded that the real culprit was the fact that fireproofing materials were dislodged during the impact, and this in turn exposed vital structural components to the heat. As these components lost strength, the floors began to sag, pulling the weakened columns inward and leading to a chain reaction that of floor collapsing upon floor until the buildings no longer stood. And the 9/11 collapse. These buildings fell at free fall speed. I believe it takes, I think I saw this somewhere, it takes like 13 seconds to drop a penny off the World Trade Center, or like 15 seconds. The buildings collapsed in, I think, 11 seconds. With literally 200,000 metric tons just of steel, let alone all the concrete, all the wood, all the desks, the people, all that weight. It collapsed at free fall speed. That's not natural. That's what a controlled demolition is. The other thing is, when it fell, it was obliterated to dust. One of the firefighters said the biggest piece of debris he found was a phone handle. Yes, I know there were tons of steel and concrete that collapsed and crushed things below, but all these things were found, and then one completely unscathed, intact passport, coincidentally, of one of the hijackers.
Another development on Saturday, New York officials revealed at a news conference here in the city that a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that. No other details were given, but the discovery prompted the FBI and police to expand the search area down in Lower Manhattan.
So, why didn't that burn in the fire? Why, you know what I mean? Why was that right on top of the rubble? It's interesting. Once you start opening your mind to the fact that people can lie to you And it's pretty easy because we want to trust our leaders. That's our instinct, is to trust the leaders. And I'm not too far in, I think flat earth is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Mostly because I'm a very spiritual person and I've connected with the earth. If you haven't gone out and connected with the earth before and felt the vibrations and, drew energy and exchanged energy, A, you're missing out. B, you can't be fully awake if you're not spiritually connected. So I think flat earth is stupid. Like the fact that there are mirages out at sea, where the boats look like they're floating in air. I believe that actually comes from the curvature of the earth and bending, and the light fractals bending around. And I see planets, and there are consistencies, there's constellations. And if flat earth isn't real, then astrology is not real. And I believe in that. I believe that, the planets and the stars, we are connected to the universe. If even one person didn't exist, or one thing happened differently than it did, this universe wouldn't exist. So we're literally all one. Young Pharaoh wisely said, our brains are like computers, and our mind is like the internet, because everyone connects on a mind level. You can be like, oh, people just talk to each other. But that in and of itself is connecting on a mind level. To be able to think and process the greeting you want to give someone, and having them understand it and return it. That's literally working on the same network of minds, like the same network of neurons. And when you break it down, we're actually all made of atoms and molecules. We're all made of the same shit. So we literally are just part of one big, growing, evolving, adapting system. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And it's a proven fact that there is a spirit, that there is a part of consciousness that science can't explain with just experiments and test tubes and measurements and shit. It's consciousness, and we all share that. Even plants and animals. It's proven. If you speak kindly to plants, they will grow and they will blossom and flourish. And if you yell at plants, they respond negatively. These are all just things that I've learned over time. And my mom and my sister have been like, why don't you make videos about this? And I get nervous because what if I miss a piece of information? What if I say something wrong and people come at me? I don't like confrontation, but I think it's about time people understand. People are going to come at me and say, well, where's your proof? Where's your evidence? Watch a couple documentaries. In a way, I'm communicating to people who don't believe this, but there are also people that already do know these things that I'm just communicating with, in the sense that we both know what's happening. We are both existing on the same plane of knowledge and understanding. So you have to understand. You have to understand that in America, for example, you've already been conditioned to believe lies. Christopher Columbus, I'm reading about this now. Christopher Columbus is upheld as this amazing figure, this American hero. He didn't discover America. You can't discover a place, right? You can't be the original pioneer discoverer of a place if there's already people living there. You see, and there were so many Americans already here, Native Americans, tens of millions of them. And when he went down to South America, he enslaved so many Native Americans. There were 10 million that he had, and by the end there was like 12,000, I think, or some ridiculous number like that. And he sex trafficked the girls. He said, have your pick. Basically, have your pick of fresh young pussy. And by young, I mean in his travel logs, he kept meticulous logs. They had ship logs that they would keep because they didn't have electronics, so they would follow the stars. And in order to follow the stars on a cloudy night, you can't see the stars. So you have to look at your star log, your ship log, and kind of guess where you are based on where you were the night before and where you were the night before and the way the winds were blowing yesterday and the temperature and this and that, and so he was actually really good at keeping track of stuff. So when he wrote something about young Native girls, especially look out for the 9s and 10s. And I'm pretty sure back in the day they didn't rate girls on a scale of 1 to 10 like they do now. So 9s and 10s, to me, pretty much translates to disgusting pedophilia. And it's horrific because these people were living here. They were already here. And when Columbus and his people showed up, they were kind. They welcomed them in. They taught them how to farm. They taught them what to do, and they brought them in and they welcomed them, and they just turned around and made them slaves. And it's always been a thing to make people with darker skin slaves. I mean, but back in the day, slavery was like a thing that people did. It's just true. Europeans enslaved Europeans. Africans enslaved Africans. People traveled and enslaved other people. It's horrible, but it was something that was common. So in a way, you got to look at Columbus and be like, this is something that he was around. But at the other same times, DeSoto was speaking out all the time about how slavery was wrong. And slavery was an abomination, and Columbus was an abomination for having slaves. But we walk around and we uphold Columbus as this pioneer who discovered our country. What he did, they brought diseases over to these people who had lived off the land and lived naturally and had spiritual connections with the earth and the animals. And, part of me thinks that's, so gross. These dirty, diseased, nasty, and I'm not a hater on white people, but these gross, crusty white people came over and infected everybody. That says something about what their health. It says something about ew, what hygiene they had. That's just so disgusting to me. And we adopted some of Native American culture, for sure. But also, we demolished it. And there are still true Native Americans living here on reservations. And they're still getting treated like shit. And it sucks. And I wonder what I can do to stop it. Other than just educate people. But I know Columbus would chop people's hands off. Native Americans, it wasn't just he enslaved them and then if they disobeyed, he killed them. He would torture them. He would cut their noses and ears off if they disobeyed or they didn't do something right, to send messages to their tribes. Take their women, rape them, sell them to other people. And there's so many different tribes. He just swept the land and just killed literally millions of people. So that means over a couple years. So that's literally hundreds of people dying a day, right? Or is that thousands of people dying a day? Because the other thing is, he took them from a natural, like a natural place, like a natural diet, their lifestyle, and he would like hold them up and like put them on boats and ships, and he like would bring them back to England, and they would starve, and they'd go into malnutrition, and they'd develop really bad health, and they would get these diseases that these nasty, gross, dirty Europeans had. So it's really a whole mess. So my point is, if you're, and this is true, these are what, now this, I'm reading Lies My Teacher Told Me by, I'll put it in there, it's by someone. And this is a really educational book, because this guy is a history professor, and he actually read a total of, the first edition, he read 12 different history textbooks for, I guess, high schoolers. And he compared it to real history, and only a few of them, you know, even mention that Columbus had slaves. And it's like these history companies are supposed to tell you the real history, and they don't. And you have to question, why do they choose to leave out the truth? Why? They write history like it's a book, like oh, it's tough, but you always know there's gonna be a good end. Like, that's just not how it was. History, you have, and they also don't teach critical thinking. So the questions that they ask at the end of the chapter are like, why did Columbus go on his expedition? But they should be questions like what urged Columbus to go on his expeditions? Like, why, like, do you think these were right? Like, do you really think that he made it to America? Like, I don't know, but like, they should be more critical thinking questions that challenge the students to question history and put their own opinions on it, instead of just answering like, where did he go? Who did he know? What did he see? Like, all these questions that you just flip to a page and see. There should be critical thinking questions. So my point fucking is, if they are lying to you about who founded this country and the most basic facts of this country, did the cat get out? It's a rat. How did the rat get out?
Outdoors?
Come here, Bobby. If they can fucking lie to you about how this country was founded and the kind of people that claimed this land, that's the very beginning. If it starts on a lie, what stops them from continuing to lie? Because the problem is, these past couple years, we've been catching them in lie after lie after lie. Sex trafficking rings, collusions with China, Joe Biden and his son, while he was vice president, inviting the Chinese consulate to the Pentagon and to like little rooms in the White House at midnight. Look that up. Why? You know what? Why lie? If you're not doing anything wrong, why lie? Why? Like, that's a great example. If you're not doing anything wrong, then why not be open? Why didn't Trump show us his tax records? Because me, I'd be like, yeah, look at them. Even if I was, I'd be like, yeah, I fucked up. I lied. You could get out of it, you're Trump. My other question is, why didn't Obama show us his birth certificate? And people claim, like, that's, like, racist, so he shouldn't have to. Well, okay. But there are claims that he wasn't born here, which I don't care about. I think, you know, I mean, he's a demon, but all presidents are awful people. It's all planned. They're all part of the thing. Actually, a lot of presidents aren't even invited to the Bilderberg Group meetings, which says a lot about where the power really lies. Because it's a place where decisions are made for the world. U.S. president's supposed to be the most powerful person in the world, and he doesn't even get invited. I know Bill Clinton wasn't. Bill Clinton's a fucking brainwashed puppet. It's all Hillary. Seriously. It's all Hillary. Straight up. These aren't just conspiracy theories. I'm serious. Look at this rat. Hey, baby. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're gonna fall. Here. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm currently handling the distro in lieu of
I think that's all I
hosting.
wanted to say.
I spoke to
So.
LT Fam a minute ago. The only
Cool.
guidance